And with the onset of the new year, you must have come across various listicles reflecting on the goods and bads of the past year. One such list was also published on World Leaders to rank the most corrupt one in the year of 2024. Two African leaders have made it to the top 3 on the list of the most corrupt leaders of 2024.
Brothers and sisters of Africa, friends of truth around the world, welcome back once again to Voice of Africa. It is natural to look back at the events and controversies of the past year. Across newspapers, websites, and television channels, countless lists were published, summarizing the best and worst moments of 2024. Among them was a list that shocked many Africans because it named 2 leaders from our continent among the most corrupt leaders of the world. This list was not an ordinary ranking made for entertainment. It was the annual Person of the Year list published by the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, known as OCCRP. OCCRP is a global network of investigative journalists who spend their lives digging into corruption, exposing financial crimes, and holding the powerful accountable. Their award is not meant to celebrate but to shame. It highlights the figures who, through corruption and abuse of office, have harmed their countries and people the most. For 2024, OCCRP named former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad as its top choice. But to the shock of many, Kenya's President William Ruto and Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu appeared in the top 3, securing 2nd and 3rd place. The inclusion of these 2 leaders, at the helm of Africa's 2 largest economies in East and West Africa, sparked global conversation and local anger. Why were they nominated? What evidence led to this verdict? And most importantly, what does this mean for the millions of citizens under their leadership? Today, we will examine these questions carefully. We will rely only on facts, cross-checked with reports, and present the story in a way that gives clarity. As you listen, I encourage you to take a moment to like this video so that YouTube recommends it to more viewers. And if you find this work valuable, consider supporting Voice of Africa with a super thanks. Your support helps us continue bringing Africa's truth to the world. OCCRP and the corruption ranking. The OCCRP is no stranger to controversy. Over the years, it has investigated oligarchs, drug lords, money launderers, and even entire governments. Each December, it publishes its Person of the Year in Organized Crime and Corruption. Past recipients include presidents, prime ministers, and business tycoons whose greed and abuse left scars on their nations. The process involves 2 parts. First, OCCRP opens public nominations. Citizens, activists, journalists, and ordinary people submit names of leaders or officials they believe deserve the title. In 2024, over 40,000 people nominated Kenyan President William Ruto. That number alone was historic, the most nominations OCCRP has ever received for a single individual. Then comes the second step. An independent panel of judges reviews the evidence, checks the reporting, and decides who to place at the top. Although the judges ultimately gave the award to Assad of Syria, the fact that Ruto and Tinubu were ranked 2nd and 3rd demonstrates the scale of global concern about their governance. William Ruto, from hope to anger. In Kenya, William Ruto came into office promising change and hope. He positioned himself as the hustler president, a man of humble background ready to fight for ordinary Kenyans. But less than 2 years into his presidency, many of his citizens feel betrayed. The biggest turning point came in 2024 with the introduction of the finance bill. This bill included sweeping new taxes on fuel, food, internet services, and even housing. For ordinary citizens already struggling with high living costs, it was the last straw. Youth groups, led by the so-called Gen Z movement, organized mass protests across the country. Social media platforms like TikTok and Twitter became rallying grounds. Protesters accused the government of greed, of enriching elites, while ordinary Kenyans could not afford food, jobs, or education. The state's response was harsh. Security forces deployed tear gas, water cannons, and in some cases, live bullets. Dozens of people were killed, many more injured, and human rights groups documented cases of abductions and disappearances of government critics. The situation drew international concern and even criticism from Kenya's allies. Ruto's government argued that the finance bill was necessary to address the nation's debt crisis and fund development projects. But the perception of corruption overshadowed his explanation. Reports emerged showing that while citizens tightened their belts, government officials were spending heavily on receptions, parties, and unnecessary luxuries. In his first 6 months alone, Ruto's office reportedly spent more than $1 million on hospitality and entertainment. To protesters, this was proof that the leadership was disconnected from the suffering of ordinary Kenyans. By mid-2024, the pressure became so intense that Ruto was forced to dismiss nearly his entire cabinet in an attempt to appease public anger. Yet the trust of citizens had already been severely shaken. Bola Tinubu, the gamble of reforms in Nigeria. On the other side of the continent, Bola Ahmed Tinubu assumed Nigeria's presidency in May 2023, promising to renew hope and stabilize Africa's most populous nation. His presidency, however, quickly became defined by two controversial economic reforms: the removal of fuel subsidies and the unification of exchange rates. For decades, Nigeria had subsidized petrol prices to keep them affordable. But the subsidy drained billions from the treasury every year. Tinubu argued that it was unsustainable and benefited smugglers more than citizens. In one of his first acts as president, he declared, "Subsidy is gone." Overnight, fuel prices tripled, transportation costs skyrocketed, food prices surged, inflation worsened. For ordinary Nigerians, the impact was devastating. Tinubu insisted that the pain was temporary, that savings from the subsidy removal would be invested in infrastructure, education, and health. But more than a year later, many Nigerians say they have not felt the promised relief. Instead, they face one of the worst cost-of-living crises in decades. A study in 2024 estimated that over 31 million Nigerians were facing acute food insecurity, partly because of high fuel and food prices. Protests erupted under the banner "End Bad Governance." Youth groups, trade unions, and civil society organizations demanded the government reinstate subsidies, tackle corruption, and stop policies that seemed to favor elites over the masses. Adding to the anger are long-standing accusations against Tinubu himself. Critics have accused him of amassing personal wealth while citizens suffer. Old allegations resurfaced: claims of drug trafficking ties in the United States in the 1990s, accusations of certificate forgery during his election, and reports of unexplained wealth. Although Tinubu and his supporters deny these charges, the cloud of suspicion remains. Like Ruto, Tinubu has also been criticized for frequent foreign trips in luxurious private jets while Nigerians face hunger and unemployment at home. Both presidents have earned the nickname "fly presidents," a bitter reference to their travels while their people struggle. The bigger picture: Africa's governance challenges. The inclusion of Ruto and Tinubu in OCCRP's ranking is not just about two individuals. It reflects broader challenges that African nations face: weak accountability systems, entrenched corruption, and economic policies that too often harm the poor while protecting elites. In Kenya, decades of debt, structural adjustment programs, and poor planning have left the economy fragile. In Nigeria, dependence on oil, combined with insecurity and mismanagement, has created cycles of crisis. Both governments argue that harsh reforms are needed to fix these problems. Economists sometimes agree, but the key question remains: who bears the burden of reform? Too often, it is the ordinary citizen, not the leaders who caused the problems in the first place. What makes the OCCRP list powerful is not just the shame it brings, but the reminder that the world is watching. In an era of digital connectivity, citizens can nominate, document, and amplify their voices globally. The fact that over 40,000 people nominated Ruto shows how much anger there is among Kenyans. The importance of public accountability. Why does this matter for Africa's future? Because accountability is the lifeblood of democracy. When leaders feel untouchable, corruption thrives. But when citizens protest, vote, demand answers, and shine a light on wrongdoing, change becomes possible. Already, we see how public action has forced changes. In Kenya, parts of the finance bill were scrapped after the protests. In Nigeria, pressure from unions has forced the government to provide relief packages and promise investment in compressed natural gas to reduce fuel costs. These steps are small, but they show that people's voices matter. For us as Africans, this moment is a call to remain vigilant. We cannot afford to be silent when leaders misuse public trust. We must keep demanding transparency, justice, and policies that prioritize the people over elites. A year of lessons. The OCCRP ranking of 2024 will be remembered as a moment when Africa's two biggest economies found their leaders shamed on a global stage. For William Ruto and Bola Tinubu, the challenge is clear. Either prove the critics wrong by delivering real reforms that uplift their people, or risk losing the trust and legitimacy that democracy demands. For citizens, the lesson is equally powerful. Unity and persistence matter. Whether in Nairobi, Lagos, or beyond, when ordinary people rise together, their voices cannot be ignored. Let us keep raising those voices. Let us demand honesty from our leaders. And let us remember that Africa's future belongs not to the corrupt few, but to the millions of hardworking men and women who deserve better. Friends, thank you for staying with us through this detailed breakdown. If you believe in accountability, if you believe Africa deserves leadership with integrity, then please help us spread this message. Like this video so that YouTube shows it to more people. Share it with your friends and family. And if you are able, support Voice of Africa through Super Thanks. Every contribution helps us keep investigating, keep reporting, and keep giving a voice to Africa's people. Together, we can shine a light on corruption and remind leaders that power belongs to the people. Until next time, stay strong, stay informed, and stay hopeful.